Hi everyone, it's Rebecca, the colorful book duster here at Rivercrest Cottage, and I am here to have a cottage and chat. Let me go get some tea and let's have a chat about what did I do or experience or what am I loving at the end of January 2021. So speaking of tea, what am I drinking? Well, for right now, it's one of my old and dearest favorite ones that I've had for quite a while. And that is Lady Grey. This is really nice, especially in the afternoon. And it's just a black tea with orange peel, lemon peel. Now, this is where I always get a little leery. Natural citrus flavors with other natural flavors. But this is a lovely afternoon tea. It's not as strong as an English breakfast. And the thing is, I don't actually ever put milk in it. I think it's because it has the orange citrusy notes. It bothers me. The thought of orange juice and milk. So it's a lovely one that I don't have. I sometimes sweeten it, sometimes don't. It just depends. But I used to have it at work quite a lot, largely because, I can't keep, I have to take a thermos of milk to keep it cold because I didn't have a refrigerator in my office. This was a great one for me to have at work. It's a lovely tea called Lady Grey. All right. So we've made it. Not only did we make it through 2020, but we also made it through now January of 2021, and it has flown by. Things have changed here in my life, and so I was here for the first time for the full month, and guys, I loved it. I was able to focus on so many things. I was able to get the channel back up and going and starting to get into that rhythm of doing some filming. I just did a coloring video that I put up. It was the Ivy and the Inky Butterfly, and boy, was I rusty on editing, was I rusty on filming, but I'm thinking it's coming back. But I did want to kind of summarize and just have a little chat here at the cottage about what's going on or what went on in January. So if you look back on the channel, of course, there was, hey, I'm back video. Then there was also another video regarding books. It was a reading vlog that I did. And then there's also the coloring video that just went up. And I am hoping to kind of keep that going. I don't know how often I could do reading vlogs just because of how my life is. For at least a week or more, I won't be here at the cottage. I'll be down at the apartment, and it really isn't conducive to filming. And there's not a whole lot to do. My husband will be working at the time, so he might not want me walking around in the background vlogging as he's Zooming. So, but I did get 3 books read, and I got to mark them off on my tic-tac-toe. Here was my tic-tac-toe for January, just in case you're looking. Yeah, so there was 3 books I was able to mark off, and the first one was The Nordic Theory of Everything. I mentioned it in my reading vlog. I think I mentioned it in what I was doing whenever my first video coming back. Very interesting one. I think some people got confused about what this is. And you know what? I'm going to put this down for now. We'll just put it up here in the corner for you guys to know what I'm talking about. It is not about hygge at all. It's not about their lifestyle, so to speak. It isn't about Scandinavian design. It's nothing like that. What it's about is the political support systems that they have, or I should say the public support systems that they have, and kind of the comparison of why are these people considered some of the happiest people on earth, because that came out in 2012. The author is Finnish, and I think that she's done a really great job because she's an immigrant here to the United States. She fell in love with a man who is American, and she moves over from Finland after having all these social supports, which are a part of what is paid for with their taxes, and it's government run. And so the interesting thing is when it talks about the Nordic theory of everything, it gives one theory about true love is about being an independent person. And to be independent of things that you then might owe something to. So whether it's being independent from your parents, whether it's being independent from an employer situation, that type of thing, so that your relationships maintain on a more level, equal basis. And it all comes from the theory of love, and that is the Nordic theory of love. And she starts from that point and then goes forward. And it's very well and nicely laid out that it starts talking about what do they do from the very beginning of your life as a baby, what is provided for your family, what is expected, and then it moves up to once you get into, your parents needing time off from work and that whole type of thing to be able to raise you into this independent individual. And then you move into the schools, and then you move into the colleges and the paying for college or not paying for college. And then you move into even the next set of lives of you're now the parent. Do you have to have the struggle to support your child in all these other areas? And it includes healthcare, it includes education, it includes unemployment, and that healthcare is not tied to where you work. Very, very interesting. I think she did a great job of explaining it and kind of bringing it back. Now, it is a bit of a chunker. It's over 400 pages long. I mean, you may not know that just looking at it. Is it 400? Sorry. Yeah, this one's over 400 pages, but just be aware, don't be too worried about it, because it actually is, the last half is almost all references, so that what she's referencing, she is a journalist herself, so, when she's talking in the book, there's direct, you can go look and say, well, where is she getting that from? Is it from a study? She also explains about that whole idea of, how do they determine who's the happiest people in the world, and how do you compare Finnish college students' education or Finnish, because it's Finland where she talks about, but of course it's all the Nordic countries. All the differences, like how do you compare those, to America? And she does. She talks about, when they do these rating scales or they do this where they're trying to figure out how Finland students appear to be more round. They obviously speak better too. Sorry about that. So it's one of those things to kind of go into just to kind of see somebody from that country explain the system. She does go off to say that not everybody in Finland or in the Nordic countries are content with how it is. They'll tell you that they have a lot that they have to change. They'll say some things work, some things don't, like she says, no matter what. She goes, then probably most of them would be very surprised that they're supposed to be the happiest people in the world. So, but I think it's a really fascinating read. It's very easy. The only thing I'll say is because there's a common thread that runs through it, which is their theory, which their theory of everything is in and around love, their theory of love. She has to keep referring back to it. So every time you move into something else, another aspect of life, from cradle to grave, and she goes through all of it, you get a little bit tired because it is kind of repeating. But in a way, if you were reading these individually, maybe not sit down like I did. I devoured this book. And as you saw before, I mean, I highlighted the heck out of it. I thought there was a lot of great phrases and ways of looking at stuff. It really did kind of shake a few things, definitely from how I was raised, and made me go, there's definitely validity there. She's not aggressive, disgusted, or charging at America in any way, but she does talk about her shocks and the things that she suddenly started experiencing when she came to the United States that she didn't experience when she was in Finland. But like I said, you do get, I think the book probably could have been 50 to 60 pages less, or maybe, if we just didn't have to keep doing that round and round again. Here we go. One of the things she does is that she does eventually, I promise you, if you're reading this book, that she will talk to you about taxes. But the funny thing is she kind of puts that in throughout the whole thing because, of course, there's taxes that are paying for these programs. And she keeps saying, I'll get to that. I'll get to about taxes in comparison to the United States and everything. And it was like a tease. I was kind of like, hey. And then when she gets to it, it's a pretty straightforward, she has a couple percentages she talks about in general, and you're kind of over with. So, if you're just reading it to get the argument, she does address very specific arguments, things that people would say, and how they like to say it's a socialistic based government. She explains how maybe it's not. So very, very interesting read. But it has nothing to do with hugging candles and furry things and making yourself feel cozy, just to let you know. This one I gave 4 stars. I'd almost give it 5, except for I felt like it rambled a little bit, like I'm doing now. Difference is you can fast forward if you want to, or just click off. But I felt like it rambled just a little bit. There was a little bit more that I wanted to in other places, but I think it's a good read. 5s for me are always ones I feel I can recommend to a lot of people. This one I'd have to be careful because depending on how you go into it, why are you reading it? Make sure you're asking yourself, are you truly curious, or are you just want to find fault? And on either way, are you just looking for fault of the American way? Or are you looking for fault on everybody else but the American way? Anytime you bring those, go in with an open mind and just kind of listen to it. It also speaks to relationships, the relationship between my son and I. If I've paid for his college, then I start putting my expectations that he's going to go do something with that degree I just paid for. And it might have even changed what he would have wanted to study. He might have felt more free once he got to college to change what he was studying if it wasn't me that was footing the bill. I don't know. And I'll never know that, so, and by me footing the bill, I mean my husband and I can't leave him out. All right. So then the next book. So that was a good one. And I've never started a new, first year. I've never started with nonfiction. This one I picked up and I was excited because I picked it up in November I haven't read as of January. And with me keep going on my shelves over here and going through my books, I'm really hoping to get to that point eventually where literally I can maybe buy a couple books and within the next month be picking them up and reading them and not getting lost in the sea of unread books. You can dream. Anyway, so the next one that I read, which you also would have known about, was The Mysterious Benedict Society. It's a middle grade mystery kind of thing. I think it's a very good book. This was very interesting in that I felt fine about it. This would be a solid 3, maybe almost a 4-star, an upper 3, but a definitely solid 3. It was a good read. Wasn't quite sure if I was going to want to read any more after this because it is a series. It's the first book in the series. I definitely feel like if my son was home and he wasn't 25 or about to be 25, if he was middle grade, if he was about 10 years old, I would have loved to read this with him. Or along with him, I should say. But the ending really makes it good. And there's so many times I read a book hoping the ending will fix the book. A lot of times, I'm like disappointed in a book. I'm angry. I had a couple, we all know I've had issues with Casual Vacancy and Woman in Cabin number 10, hoping maybe something at the end would make this all better. And how many times does that happen? No, the book needs to be pretty good. And it was. We were chucking along fine, but the ending really made it and pushed this up to a 4-star. And that came evident when I went down and kind of analyzed everything I liked about the book. The best thing, of course, is the 4 kids that are the main characters that are going through. They are going to save the world. And we learn about them, and they all have quirky capabilities. None of them it's not magical per se. One guy anything he reads, he remembers. Another one, he's just very aware, and he doesn't forget details of things that he's seen, and he's able to put them together pretty well. Makes him a great kind of group leader. One of the characters has amazing physical capabilities, and by that, I mean, she's just very agile. She's very athletic. She's not necessarily big and huge and strong, but she's really neat. And then there's the 4th character, which you have no idea what her special ability is. She's just basically the naysayer of the group who wants to say no to everything. You're just like, why are you here? And but the kids, they always have those odd ones out. Even whenever you have a group of misfits, there's still going to be an odd man out, which it was saying something. But oh my gosh, the reasoning for it and everything that you get at the end, again, just really charming. So I really suggest this one. Middle grade March is coming up, and so is March Mystery Madness. This would be a wonderful double one for you to do. If you can get it, if you have middle schoolers, I think they'd really enjoy it. It had a good plot line. It kept moving along, had quirky characters. I felt like it was a little bit, I think I said this before, a little Alex Rider, because they're saving the world, spy type thing. But they end up at this weird school, and the cast of characters around them are very wonkish, very Willy Wonka, kind of bizarre, strange characters. So definitely a good book for that. And then our last one, and maybe this is the only reason why you're here. You're like, did you finally read this book? And I did. And oh God. Oh, probably shouldn't say that. And that is, well, we think it's Anne Rice, but it's not. It's Christ the Lord, The Road to, and I'm going to say Cana. I don't know if I'm saying that one right. So this book has been interesting. I thought it was going to be some type of really bizarro, Anne Rice vampire maybe type take on this. It's not. It is considered biblical fiction. It is based on and told from the perspective of Jesus. He is the voice you hear throughout this book. And it is when he's 30. He's just turned 30 or so, and it's in between. So basically what happens, I was saying that Cana is where the wedding was, where he changed the water to the wine, and that's kind of like where you end with. So it is the beginning of when he starts doing the miracles. And in this book, you end up meeting the people who are getting married, which is interesting unto itself. But I think some of the weird aspects of this really is the point of view, and it's tough for me. And I was been trying to think, why has it been so tough? Number one, I was raised to respect, the Lord, and the thought of him voicing in a book just seemed really presumptuous of Anne Rice. But as I said, I guess there's no reason. But I now realize what it is. When I read historical fiction, I have only read one time where it's from the perspective of somebody who is famous at the time. Usually historical fictions that I read, you have somebody who is like a maidservant or an assistant of some sort. And that's, or an investigator who interacts with these famous, well-known people, but it isn't from their perspective. Perfect example is the 3 books over here, right there. It's Hilary Mantel, the Wolf Hall, and the subsequent 3. It's from Thomas Cromwell's point of view, and it works. Doesn't work so well in here because number one, it's almost all dialogue, so I don't learn a lot and I don't hear a lot of his thoughts. Some unusual things happen along the way. One of the things I thought was interesting, they talk about that he had brothers, that Joseph was married before Mary and had a child, and that is his older brother. He doesn't call Joseph dad. It's Joseph, calls Mary mom, but Joseph is Joseph. So I find all that really kind of interesting. His relationship with his mom, he only really talks with her like for a brief moment. You don't get that interaction. So I didn't learn anything about Mary. I didn't learn anything really about Joseph besides their older age and all of that. And then all the other characters, oh my God, and there's so many that were J's. Why do you do that? It's like Joseph. Let's see, there's Joseph. There was a Judas mentioned in there. Then there was Joshua and James. I mean, oh God, it took me a while. And because it's all dialogue, it really was kind of confusing. The best and most interesting part, but it did not save the book because it wasn't the whole book, was when he goes out into the desert and he actually starts talking with the devil. And the way she did that, I thought was really good. I went, wow, okay, maybe this is why people do like to read Anne Rice. Everything else, though, and that was almost all the book, seemed really simplistic sentence structure, it just was so bland, and there wasn't a lot of insight. I don't feel like I got to know any of these characters at all, least of all Jesus. And I definitely think I think it's a good one to have discussion. And if you read biblical fiction, I'm sure that this one is one definitely to discuss with other people. I have never read biblical fiction before. So I was kind of out of my depth, I think, and not familiar. And again, it coming from the perspective of somebody so, it's funny, well known, but not, because we only know, well, the general public only knows, kind of those key stories. The stories around his birth, the changing of the water to the wine, some of the miracles he did. This one he does go down to John the Baptist down at the river. So you kind of hit that. I thought it might have more with a political bit. I thought we might learn. I was kind of looking forward to learning kind of the whole thing because they introduced Pontius Pilate in here. He's the new governor in town. But even that, not really. So it just doesn't feel deep at all. And I did enjoy the reading of it. There's nothing, very rare. There's only a few little spots I marked that I thought was it's an interesting thought for me as far as like, oh, I didn't know he had brothers. I didn't know that, he would have that kind of like, I didn't know that, I never even thought about it. Like, Does Jesus have brothers? Never thought as a kid to ask. So anyway, this one's going to go down as a 2 star for me. I would not recommend this to anybody at this point. Again, if you're into biblical fiction, this might ring more true and you might enjoy it more. I definitely don't understand why Anne Rice's name is so freaking big on this, but I really don't get it. But so I'm glad that's done with, though. It did take me a while to read it because it was a little hard going for me to read it. So I had 2 good books and 1 not so good book out of the 3. I am currently, and this is what I was going to say, is currently I'm listening to Tidelands by Philip Greger. I'll be doing more of a review of listening to literature with that book into February because I still have about 5 hours. It's a 15-hour book. I have about 5 hours to listen to. Not jazzed about it. But I'm kind of like, oh God, this is going to be the bad part. Like it was already kind of cool, but now I think we're going to get into a really bad, because every book, especially historical fiction, always has like this really horrible down moment in it. And I think we're about to hit it because like it says, 15 and a half hours, I'm on 7 hours, I've listened to about 8 hours of it. So yeah, something climactic's going to happen, but we'll have to see. Let's see. Oh, but I did also want to share with something else that I'm loving here in January. And I watched it about a year ago and then I kind of forgot about it, but it's on Peacock, another channel that you can watch, but I think it's NBC. And that is Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. Please tell me if you've watched it. If you like anything, I mean, if you liked Glee and the dancing, the singing, it is musical based, but it's more than that. And it's not a bunch of teenage issues going on. Instead, it's based at a .com is where she works. She has something happen and suddenly people are breaking into song around her. So it's a bunch of flash mobs. But I have to say it's comedy, but it has this underlying story with her father and illness that he has. And I think they've handled it really beautifully. And I have cried several times during this watching this program. But if you want something completely different that doesn't have ghouls and goblins and zombies and vampires and people trying to kill you every 2 seconds, I think it's a really great program to watch. So it's Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. I'll put a little link down below to NBC probably has a channel kind of blurb on it. I first watched it because it kept interrupting when they sent it through YouTube where you could watch the whole first episode. And I got kind of hooked. And then recently I remembered about it. And now I watch it most evenings. It just is something different and fun. I have not watched Bridgerton, even though, because I want to read at least one of the books before I do. I will watch it even if I don't like the book for some reason. I'll still watch it because, again, we know very rarely do the networks do justice to anything. So they might have improved it if I didn't like the book. But if I really like the book, then hopefully it's just some eye candy. I'm hoping. Let me know what you're watching. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know what you're into. And there will be a coloring video coming up as far as what I'm coloring for February. There is my February TBR that will be coming up. And again, it's not to be read. It's really a PTBR, potential to be read stack that I've gone through. And I also am sharing with you how I chose them because this is how I choose my books every month. Let's see. I think that's it. At least for January. Bye-bye, January 2021. And hello, February. What you doing? Thanks for checking in to see what's going on down here by the river, here at Rivercrest Cottage. Keep turning those pages.